Thank you very much, Ruth. So yeah, as Ruth says, I'm Claire Thompson. I head up the customer analytics team at RBS within the commercial and private banking part. Firstly, I'm just going to apologise. I've got trainers on today. I'm not trying to make some sort of political statement about females wearing high-heeled shoes. I'm not some sort of big data fashionista, and this is what you all should be wearing. I actually dislocated my knee about a week and a half ago, and I really wish I had a fabulous story to tell you that I was doing some really extreme sport like, skydiving or gill scrambling, which I was actually doing the week beforehand. I was actually doing that extreme sport of scarifying the lawn in the back garden. And this is what happened. So yeah, apologies. This is not the normal attire on my feet. So anyway, I'll just start off by telling you a little bit about me and my background and where I've come from. So I started my career, I did a degree in statistics. I was very lucky. I went to Sheffield Hallam University and I learned SAS programming as part of that university degree. And it's really stood me in good stead career-wise. I started off at Bradford and Bingley, I moved on to Barclays, I've been in consultancy, and I've done quite a wide variety of different things with data. Whether it is big system migrations that have happened, looking at data quality, regulation, particularly in the financial services has really stepped up. So I've done quite a wide variety of stuff. But I have to say the role that I'm doing now at RBS is probably one of the most interesting that I've done. And I think that's probably combined with what's actually happening out in the industry as well, as to what's making it so interesting and exciting. So I'm going to talk today about why data is so important and how we use data at RBS to really drive forward the business and meet the real strategic objectives of the organisation. I'll talk for around about 20 minutes, and then if you've got any questions, please put your hand up and I'll try and answer them as best as I can. So the first slide that I've got, I'm hoping that everyone perhaps recognises this. So I don't know whether I'm perhaps just getting a bit old, but this is The Matrix. It's one of my favourite films. I just thought I'd put it out there because I think it looks really cool with all the numbers on. So firstly, just want to talk about why data is so important. So as a bank, a lot of what we do is actually move money around for our customers, whether it's just being able to transact digitally online, making payments, receiving payments, perhaps transferring that money to make sure you don't go overdrawn at the end of the month. And we still do a lot of cash and check transactions, still quite a lot of physical transactions that happen within our space, but there's still a lot of information that's still recorded about those. So basically, everything that we do is virtual. We have stacks of information about our customers, and millions of payments are made all the time. So we really are a data-intensive organisation. And in the industry, we have seen large organisations like Amazon and eBay and Google who have really, they're basically, regardless of whatever they do, they're data-driven. And they've really driven the data revolution that we're seeing in terms of they've shown what you can actually do with data to drive your business forward and to enhance those customer interactions. And that's one of the reasons, really, why we're seeing a lot more interest in data, or I'm certainly seeing a lot more interest in data. As Ruth mentioned, my team originally, when I joined RBS, I was brought in to do customer analytics, and I had a team of 8, and it's now a team of 50, and it's spread, over multiple locations in different countries. And it shows you the importance that the industry are beginning to put on why, how data can be used to really drive that forward and drive value for the business and for its customers at the same time. So at RBS, this structure that you see here is how we talk about the strategic direction that we're actually taking at RBS, and it's both inside and outside of the organisation. So correct, connect, create. So it's about correcting our data, connecting it to the business, and then creating that value from it. We try to keep it really simple for people to remember because data can be quite complicated, and it just lays out very clearly to the team, what it is that we're actually trying to achieve and where we're going. So if you don't take anything else away from my talk today, I think this framework really pretty much sums it up. So correct, connect, and create. And what I'm going to do is go through each one of those in turn and give you a little bit more flavour as to what we're doing at RBS in each of those elements. For me, the most interesting part is the create bit on the end, but I may be a little bit biased because actually that's where my role sits. That's what I have to do. I have to drive that value from the business using the other components. So if I start by talking about correct, and I think it's really important for me to say at this point, your data does not need to be perfect to drive value from the organisation. I think there's sometimes we're striving to get everything absolutely perfect before we do anything with it. There are times when that accuracy is important, but it doesn't always need to be. You can make some really great insights on data that's perhaps not perfect to actually drive that forward. However, not every organisation has perfect data, so we're always striving to perhaps improve it so we can begin to do more and more and more, and that's what we're trying to do. So here, the first thing that we've actually done is to identify around about 500 or 600 key fields that are absolutely critical to the way that we run the bank and that we really care about the data quality of. And for the first time, we can tell you exactly where that piece of data is stored, which system it's come from, what's the definition of it, how is it actually used. And that's what we call the data lineage, really understanding, not just the Excel spreadsheet that somebody sent you, tracing it all the way back to actually understand how that flows through into the system. But the most important part for me is the second part, which is about measuring that data quality. So on a monthly basis, there are automatic reports that are generated that will tell you about the quality of that information and those key fields that I've just mentioned. So it will tell you whether or not there's information missing. It will tell you whether or not perhaps that piece of information isn't in the format that you're expecting, or perhaps it's not quite worked in the way, because we know that still there's a lot of manual input in systems that we have when somebody's miskeyed something. So those reports are there to really try and tell you exactly what's going on within the organisation around data quality and about those key fields that the business are interested in. So alongside this, there's a programme that runs, and it's all about fixing those data quality issues. So across the organisation, business units are responsible for ensuring the accuracy of the data that they're inputting or that's in the systems that they work with. And there's projects in place to progressively fix the data quality issues that we've identified. So correct is really important, but as I said, the data doesn't need to be perfect, but it's our way of working towards improving the quality as we actually go through. So the next area that we're going to talk about is connect. And this is really about getting the data out of our core system, so where the data is being processed, and putting it into a single location that everyone has easy access to. So pretty simple principle of putting the data into one place from the source system into this data enterprise hub. But why that's really important is it means it's available to everyone, and importantly, it's the same for everyone. So historically, we've had some challenges around lots of different data feeds coming from lots of different systems, going to lots of different parts of the business with perhaps slightly different changes in it. And you can imagine that that obviously causes inconsistency across all range of host of stuff that we actually do. So the way that we've done it here and set it up, it means it's in one place. The other thing we've done is implemented the Hadoop platform, so a big Hadoop platform to enable us to work with data that we've never worked with before. So for example, it allows us to look at long strings of text that perhaps our customers have done. So an example would be there was a team that would on a monthly basis manually do a sample of complaints data to really understand perhaps were there any key themes that were coming out, were there root causes as to why complaints were being raised by customers. And what this platform allows us to do is actually read those complaints automatically without that manual intervention. And rather than just a sample of complaints, we can actually read every single complaint. And that was one of the reasons why we brought in the platform, because it's great with working lots of really unstructured data. So the last section is create. And it really breaks down, as I said, this is about driving value for the business, and it breaks down into three key areas, three things that we're trying to achieve normally by that value we're generating. Either we're looking to enhance the customer experience, or we're trying to improve a process within the organisation, or we're just helping the business make decisions in a far better way using the data with some more logic. So rather than perhaps gut instinct that may have been used in the past, using those facts and figures that Ruth was talking about to enable them to make those decisions. And what I'm going to do now is just over the next couple of slides give you some examples as to how we've actually brought that create element to life. And the examples that you'll see have actually gone forward, have been shortlisted for Data IQ Awards that are actually being presented this evening. So we find out tonight at the award ceremony whether or not we've won. So it's quite a big day for us, and it's just down the road. So it's been quite good logistically. So firstly, I'm going to talk to you about this create example. And at RBS, what we're trying to do with the data is take banking back to the 70s. And I'm told, because I may be Matrix old, but I'm not 70s banking old, that banking back then was far more personal. The bank manager really owned everything that happened within the bank. They were the ones that were responsible for all the decisions that were being made. They knew the customers that were coming into the branch. They understood everything about their customers. And what we're trying to do is use that data to create a far more personalised experience and go back to that place where we knew that information, that it was tailored, rather than just a generic model that had been built that said no, yes or no to an individual. It's more about understanding the circumstances of that individual. So by having all of the data in one platform, what this has really allowed us to do is to connect it up with all our channels and then use a decision engine to use all of that data to tell us far more about the actual customer. And what this does is it allows us to make better decisions. And that's why we sort of represent it by the little brain that you see in the middle there. And for some reason, which I do not know, we call it Olympus. That's why you see Olympus in the middle. There's no logic to it. So one of the examples that I can give you as to where this comes into play, if you go to the ATM and you go to take some money out, and for some reason you forget to take your cash, and yes, this does happen, and it happens far more often than you might think. Rather than the customer worrying and then phoning up the bank to say, well, I'm really worried, what happened? Where's the money gone? Has it come out of my account? We will notice that that's actually, identify that instant as it happens. We will text the customer to say, actually, we can see that's happened. Don't worry. The money actually goes back into the ATM when that happens, if you don't take it, unless somebody's come along and taken it. But it goes back into the ATM, and we've not credited your account. So it's really that personalised experience. It takes away the customer's anxiety in that moment, and that's the type of thing that we'll be looking to do in this space. So these sort of decisioning or next best action techniques are fairly common. They're not something that's new, and it's particularly well used within retail and business banking. However, what we've done at RBS is we've actually evolved those techniques so that actually it can be applied to the smaller and far more complex part of commercial banking. And that's a first within the industry. The result has been an increase in our NPS scores and the ability to actually meet more of our customer needs. So decisioning in commercial banking is complex because of the sheer volume, the size of the organisations mean that we're dealing with numerous people within that organisation. In the sort of retail banking, it's typically just your bank account, or you might have a joint bank account, and it's very clear that you're the decision maker of what's happening with your money in that account. In large corporates, it's not so easy. You have the decision maker, who might be the CEO of an organisation. You have people who may influence that decision, so like the FD. And then you will also have people who facilitate perhaps the payments. So, they're using the online to be able to move the money around and pay the invoices or whatever that may be. So they're using our channels in lots of different ways, and that's where the actual complexity comes from. So the business saw this challenge as an opportunity to use the wealth of information that we actually had to inform that action. But this really meant that we had to have a real change in culture from the organisation because it's very relationship-led in the large corporate for understandable reasons. And that the difference here was that we were trying to implement a sort of omni-channel strategy. To help drive this, one of the things that we've done is we've really enhanced our digital capability. We've started to make enhancements on our digital platform to start capturing information from there that we previously had never done. And then we use that to create this 360-degree view of how the customers were interacting and who that person is that's interacting with that channel. And to help with the actual cultural shift, we started to roll out A/B testing in commercial, and introduce that sort of logic as to how A/B testing might work. And it started to help our stakeholders grasp the concept of the test and learn strategy that you want to take, and removed away a lot of the guesswork as to, well, why would you, making changes on the website and how the pages might look and feel. And everything then was founded in, clear data that had, an insight that had been generated from the information, from the evidence captured as to what we should be doing next in those channels. And what that's then enabled us to do is to create the Omni-Channel buying journey. So across all the channels, whether it's email, web, or the relationship manager channels, it's about listening perhaps in some of those digital channels that we actually have to inform the conversation in face-to-face. It helps relationship managers, they're no longer needed to really initiate necessarily that buying journey. Instead, we're using this automated, data-driven approach to direct customers to areas for them to explore as to how we might better help them in the future. The new information then that we learn about our customers is then passed to the relationship manager, and we'll follow up with the customer if appropriate at that point in time. But it's a significant operational saving because there's less time and effort that the RM is now having to spend on that, and it means that they can do far more value-add activity for our customers. This strong foundation that we started on is also allowing us to implement the AI and machine learning functionality into the business for the first time this year, and it's all powered by the data that we're collecting across these multiple channels. And as I said, the result of this has been an increase in the NPS scores and the ability to meet more of our customer needs that perhaps had gone undiscovered before. And it's helping RBS to achieve its ambition, which is to be #1 for service, trust and advocacy. So the next example that I've got, I'm not going to talk about this too much because actually this is the presentation that my colleague Dave, who's here today, is actually going to be talking about this afternoon. So I'm probably just going to give you a little bit of a teaser. Otherwise, I think he'll kill me if I go and ruin his presentation this afternoon. So what this example does here is take a lot of mathematical programming and linear optimization modeling to place a real-time interactive scenario planning tool in the hands of the decision maker. And that's what you can actually see up on the slides here. The result led to a transformation in the operating model with multi-million-pound savings and ultimately an enhanced customer experience. One of the key priorities that we have at RBS is to simplify the bank, making it leaner, more efficient, and allowing us to better serve our customers, while obviously creating a more cost-effective environment to work within. So to support this, the data analytics team that I work in are coming up with new innovative approaches to understand how we can better support the business in that vein. So when we were reviewing the operating model of one of the teams, they were spread across 70 locations, and it obviously became immediately apparent how we might be able to help them. These locations had grown organically over a period of time, but what it meant was that the team working and collaboration wasn't as good as perhaps it could be, but most importantly, our customers weren't necessarily getting the best experience that they could do. So what we did was to create a model that allowed us to decide what the optimum footprint might be, whilst also taking into account two things. Our staff and their location, their home location and the office location, to make sure that that was not disrupting our staff too much, to try and minimise that impact. But also, how do we best enhance that customer experience? It's really doing two things. And as I said, it led to a fundamental shift in the actual operating model itself, with teams being formed and co-located in those particular locations to try and do that and streamline the business. It has led to savings, as I said, because we're obviously not having to have those 70 locations that we've always had. And an enhanced customer experience because our teams are located and are better able to serve our customers. So Dave's hoping to give you a demo of this tool this afternoon. I think he's probably a bit nervous about it because with anything technology, you never know which way it's going to go. Our system's been up all week, and it normally is, but you never know. It'll be that one slot the way you want it to be there, and it won't work. So if you're interested in finding out more about how Dave approached this, why it came about, how he implemented it, please go along to his talk this afternoon. So I thought I'd just finish off by giving sort of 5 key things that I would focus on when building up an analytics team. So the first thing, as I've already mentioned, the data doesn't need to be perfect. You can strive to make it perfect, but I wouldn't hold out for waiting to have everything in place before you decide to go and drive some value for the business. I'm also saying that you can do a lot with a little. You don't need millions and millions of rows of data with thousands of variables to create that value. You only need a small amount of information to decide whether you want to change the customer experience, to enhance that process, or actually enable the business to change tact and actually make a different decision. So I think that's really important. The third one here is don't bite off more than you can chew. A lot of the time, what I can see is that people get very focused on the end, wanting to deliver everything all in one go, the perfect solution, which is obviously going to take quite a lot of time to actually get to. It's far better to break that down into a small piece and try and deliver quickly, deliver something fast and then iterate as you go forward, or deliver a proof of concept, very small proof of concept to the business so that they can understand the direction that you're actually wanting them to take it in. If you try to build that big long-term solution, sometimes what can happen is that actually the business strategy has changed and what you've then built is irrelevant, or that it takes so long the business don't understand the value that your team are driving, because normally, typically what you will see is the business don't understand how the analytics works or why it takes you so long to go source data, to clean it up and then do the analysis at the end. The fourth point, and these are in no particular order, is probably for me the most important one. So it's great that we're being able to, there's lots more data available. There's new tools to go play with the data. That's all fantastic. But if you've got perfect data and great tools, the important part is that you've got people who really understand what they can do with that and actually drive value from it. So for me, analytics is all about its people. It's really important that you recruit and develop talent in this area, because that's the bit that makes or breaks whether or not you're a good analytics team. And the last one is not to have defined use cases. So sometimes when you're doing that analysis and you think it's going to show you one thing, it'll decide to come up and go, oh, actually, you're wrong. Your assumption that you've made actually should be going off down this. And too often I see that these use cases are defined and it forces you down a particular avenue. It's constraining you in terms of what you'd perhaps look at. And it'd be far better you need a little bit of framework around it, but try not to be too constrained, because you never know what the data is actually going to show you in the end. So that concludes my talk today. Thank you very much for listening. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to try and answer them.